So Tarun, thanks for coming to the Ballistic office. You've had such an incredible journey. This your second run as a founder CEO at Veza, and so, with having grown a business, becoming really this emerging leader in next generation identity, there's a lot of lessons learned as a founder CEO. And Ballistic, we focus on investing in seed and A-round companies and cybersecurity. Wanted to get your wisdom, share some of that wisdom with future founders. And so this is really about, what advice would you give to your seed or Series A self on some important topics? Let's start with hiring. Yes. Always a critical topic. Knowing what you know now, if you were talking to your seed or Series A self, what advice would you give yourself?
Absolutely. First of all, Jake, thank you so much for this opportunity, and it's always a pleasure to be with you, and I have a very special affection with this forum, and of course with you. I think there is so much to unpack in that question of if you go back 5 years and sort of think through what would you have done differently, or how to think about hiring or talent or teams. And I think my I've learned a lot, and I wish I knew these things maybe 5 years ago. But I would say the number one, as you think about hiring and teams and talent, is just pick a couple pillars, right? For us, what we've picked a couple pillars is everything starts and ends with clock speed. You want to index in hiring that early stage, the first 3 years, the first 5 years, with people who have a highest level of clock speed, who can think abstract, who can take undefined problems, they can deal with ups and downs, and they can deal with problems that don't have a definition, but yet you have strong intuitions, right? So I think that's one core pillar that has become for me 5 years into this journey, and of course having done this once before. And I would say the second is the second core pillar, Jake, that I've realized is don't get stuck into this whole notion of hiring people with brands. It's more important to hire people who, you can, that are going to do whatever it takes. They have some level of hunger, they have some level of deep passion, they have passion for this space, they have passion for this opportunity, they have passion for the problem statement, and they have passion to go build something great. They need to have a deep love with what you're doing. And that's not rooted in which brand they're coming from, right? Because you need people, who will just go through whatever it takes, as it say, right, to go. So I would say, I guess those are two things that have become. One, index more towards clock speed versus location, job level, references. I'm not saying those things are not important.
On clock speed, what about this notion that sometimes people struggle between clock speed and domain expertise?
Yes.
Do you hire somebody who's more of a domain expert and has a lower clock speed, or someone who has a higher clock speed and less of a domain expert?
I would say, look, it depends, and I know that answer is a cliche answer, but I will say, look, if there's a creative designer, you do want domain expertise of a creative design, right? Because somebody has to come and think creatively. But I think when it comes to, again, this stage of taking the company from zero to, the first 500 customers, the first 1,000 customers, you need a lot of problem solving. Mm-hmm. And every day, every hour, you're actually solving problems, and people don't know answers to them, right? And so to me, my learning is, I rather take clock speed over domain experience. Mm-hmm. I rather take somebody who is willing to think out of the box, we can go hire people from Meta or from Facebook or from Twitter. They may know nothing about enterprise cybersecurity, but they are so driven that they want to go drive impact. Mm-hmm. And I think there is no antidote for that, is what I've come to this conclusion.
And this idea of doing whatever it takes, how do you, sometimes people did whatever it takes in their prior role or their prior gig, and they had a great success, and that's why you're excited about them. How do you assess that, perennial question of that fire in the belly? Is somebody willing to do whatever it takes now, in the same way that maybe they were earlier in their career?
I think that's another very, very good question, and something that I've personally struggled with, that people have had a lot of good success, and that's why they grow in their careers and they become senior and very experienced and very well respected. And how do you really assess, do they have that hunger to go again,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And I think that's that also, Jake, goes back to just your persona, right? Yes, you have had a success, but it's in your ethos, it's in your values that you grew up in such an environment where it's always the next win. It's always
Yeah.
I have not achieved enough, right?
Yeah.
And it's not about financial outcomes, it's about impact.
Yeah.
It's about it's about, am I doing something which is of high value, right? And so
How do you assess that? How does, in your experience, it's not easy even with experience, but have you learned or seen or developed any ways to assess that better today than maybe as your seed or Series A self?
I think what I've learned, another thing that I've learned through this journey is references, Jake. As many, and asking and it is something, actually, I give the kudos back to you. You have coached me. It's very important to do 360 reviews, references, not only who he reported to or how he managed people underneath, right, sideways. And so I think, I'll give you an example. Some of the people we have hired, that we are hiring now, they're really, really special talent. And I wish we had them 2 years ago,
Yeah.
right? And you look at them, they don't look like coming from Google or Microsoft or OpenAI. They may be coming from, I don't know, like a Zscaler, but they're still very elite. They work hard, they're committed, they want to be in it.
Yeah.
So I would say, my if I go back to Seed Series A, do not run for the first discussion. You met somebody and you had a really good discussion and you want to accelerate the process. Don't make that mistake.
Yeah.
And there are, as a founder, as a CEO, as a co-founder, what is important to you. Is problem solving more important than technical architecture?
Yeah.
Is technical architecture more important than people management?
Yeah.
And index towards that, right? Just have that.
What strengths that you really
Yes.
care about?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it's interesting. Like I think people will also sometimes over-index on a reference coming from a famous person.
Yes.
And I think what's not done enough of is actually get references from the high potential young people on somebody's team.
Yes.
And how do the high potential young people view that person, not just maybe a senior well-known person, and really getting that full picture as you do references.
I think that's another very good point. I think it's something that I've tried to apply. I did not apply in the first 2 to 3 years of this journey, but I've applied now is doing a full 360 degrees of references and not being afraid. I think another thing that I've learned is just be very transparent about the company challenges. Don't hold those back just because you'll tune off an interview process.
Yeah.
It's actually a good, healthy part of an interview process that, hey, here is our problems. Our demand gen is not working, or our top of the funnel or middle of the funnel conversions. It's okay to talk about these things with no matter who you're hiring.
Yeah.
Because you want them to be fully apprised of all the challenges, so that when they come in, they don't feel like, hey, I didn't know this.
Yeah.
Right? Day one should feel really day one. And so I think that's another thing that I've learned is being very open and vocal. Of course, you don't want to be, you want to be objective and you don't want to be too pessimistic.
Yeah.
But at the same time, balanced.
Yeah. Open with challenges. Every company has challenges.
Yes.
I mean, even public companies have challenges. So let's talk about fundraising. As a seed stage company, a Series A company, what should an entrepreneur look for in a VC? And then how do you figure out, the reality from the marketing, right? Because, it's not like you go to Yelp and say, okay, here's this VC has 4.5 stars and let me read 800 reviews. You have more, kind of confidence picking what restaurant to go to than, somebody who's going to lead your round and be with you for your next decade. And so what's an entrepreneur to do? What have you learned in how to think about VCs, how to pick VCs when you're not as maybe experienced, connected with the ecosystem. You haven't done 2-3 companies.
Right. No, I think that's another. Candidly, I've been a little bit lucky on that front. But if I were to apply my learning or my good, I'd say good luck, is I have found, at least through my journey, whether I take our association or association with the other investors on our cap table, I think all the investors who actually will go deep with you on what are you trying to do? What is your insight? How did you land in this insight? What's your intuition in that stage of seed and Series A? And have you validated that intuition? You want to work with investors, my humble opinion, who will engage at that level of depth with you. Not that, hey, you're a great engineer coming from Facebook, let me write you a seed check, right? No, I would not. My view of great investors, my view of founders engaging with that at that stage with VCs or investors is, I would want to engage with investors and VCs who really take me, apply the diligence to that level of depth.
Yeah.
How did you think of this idea? Walk me through the birthright of that idea. And what are some of the learnings that you have had through those insights? And if this is hopefully by that time you have an idea of an MVP, and it may just be an idea, it may not be validated. How did you think about that problem? Not what, but how did you go about thinking that problem? And I think, again, I'm very, as I said, very lucky with very great investors and great board members. I think including you, who went very deep in appreciating the problem space and having the substance behind why this problem space could be real. Like I'll give you an example of my Series B investment. I know it was not seed or Series A, but it was very much a Series A back in 2021. Where my Series B investor actually took 6 months for really deep diligence. And at the end of the day, you actually want to work with that person because they've gone the distance with you, right?
Yeah.
And they will understand and appreciate that problem.
I think that's, the interesting thing about this environment where, capital is so cheap. Capital is so fast to come. It's a little bit of an easy path for entrepreneurs. Like, okay, somebody is offering me quick capital with light due diligence. But what entrepreneurs might not realize is there's a flip side to that somebody might not have, built a level of conviction, and then, hey, startups go through ups and downs. And when you go through inevitable ups and downs, how does that entrepreneur, how does that partnership, or how does that investor and how does that partnership behind that lead investor react if they went in quick and really didn't have the time to build conviction?
No, absolutely. I would say, some of the red herring signs to watch for if somebody sends you a term sheet. Do not fall for that. I think,
which is so interesting because in an environment where it's been up and to the right for so long, a lot of entrepreneurs haven't seen these big cycles that we've been through.
Yes.
Knowing that, like, man, if you can have a great company and we go through a cycle, and if you don't have the right investors behind you, it could be life and death for the company when it doesn't need to be.
Absolutely. No, I think, I would say another area to just sort of, and this is just like you hire an employee and you should do references or, be as transparent as possible. I think that applies to investors also, right? I think you should, you should call like 4 people that, hey, what's your point of view? And don't shy away, even though it feels like during seed time and Series, I really need this investment. I really need to hire these 5 engineers. Many of the founders start with their own, personal income to start something.
Yeah.
And so you have that innate feeling that, hey, I really need to get going.
Yeah.
But just patience, right, is I think is another thing that I've learned.
Yeah.
Because this is a 5-10 year journey.
Yeah, especially if you want to build a public company over time, it's a decade journey.
Yes.
One of the things about Veza is the incredible early product market fit, problem market fit before you had a GA product. I invested before you had any revenue, right? And it was, I remember our discussions were really amazing, which was, there's no product to sell, but people want to give me a check just to be first in line to get the product. What was it that allowed you to find that product market fit and problem market fit so early? And what advice would you have to, entrepreneurs in cybersecurity who are trying to find that?
Yeah, I think, I appreciate you saying that, Jake. That I think has been one extreme highlight of Veza, the problem market fit. And I would say, if I again go back and sort of, I think one of the things that I think we did very, very well is just taking, we spent an year, 1 year, we had a thesis, which, was early thesis and not, not fully thought of. But, we spoke to about 100 leaders in a year and not rush into starting a company, right? Not have this rush, I need to form something, I need to leave my job, I need to start something. And we, even though we were convinced, I think I'm so grateful to all the people we spoke to before we even started the company. Of course, you speak to another 100 people when you start the company, right? But so I think that's one. I think taking your time and not rushing and validating the problem from multiple angles. Number two is even when you start something, you do not give up on validation.
Yeah.
You keep challenging yourself and asking the hard questions. Would you write a check if we were to solve this problem in 9 months? It's okay to ask that question to prospects, and even though you may be a startup, but don't operate like that, right? Assume that you have a shipping product and assume that you're going to get something done in 12 months. That's the window you have, because you want to validate that, continue to validate, right? If you're going the wrong direction, you want to fix it. So like us, even though we were convinced the visibility and the least privilege is the overarching theme, but we wanted to think what could be the step to that early, even though the visibility product was not fully built out.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's I think the third learning I've had back to the problem market fit, and why we believe that we, as we say the statement, we woke up a pretty sleepy industry, is always as a founder keep thinking about step 2, step 3.
Yeah.
While you're selling something, that hey, what more can I do to help you solve another set of problems? Don't just feel like I have an MVP, I'm going to go drive that MVP and I'm going to get that deal done.
Yeah.
That's good, you should, but you actively should be thinking about step 2, step 3.
I'd say that's something that, I really got the sense of when you engage with customers. They weren't buying into a product, they were buying into a journey.
Yes.
They were saying, look, certainly, what you want to build today is great, but there was always this notion of what you were going to build next, and
Yes.
next is something that they wanted to be on that journey with you. And I think that's something that a lot of companies miss is, you're obviously, want to sell the product you have today.
Correct.
But this idea of, continual validation
Yes.
of the product. And then with that, you're taking the customer on a journey with you.
Correct.
And if you've validated the journey, not just the product, it actually becomes a much deeper and stickier relationship.
It becomes a much deeper relationship. Yeah. And look, as you rightly said, who knew agentic will be a thing 9 months ago, right?
Yeah.
But since you were talking to them, those customers will share with you that, hey, have you thought about an agentic visibility problem?
Yeah.
They will lean into that relationship with you.
What other big lessons have you learned that you'd want to give your Seid and Series A self? There's probably a lot, but feel free to pick one.
No, that list is very long, Jake. But I think, I would say 3 things that I at least have become very core. I used to think, again, to your point of building a public institution or a public entity, I used to think having a product market fit is all it matters. And I'm the first one to tell you, even though we have a massive product market fit, it's all about people. Mm-hmm. The first 5 people, the first 10 people, the first 100 people is...
and peel the onion on that a little bit, because a lot of people will say it's all about people, but what's underneath that? Give a few more pieces
Yeah, no,
of
let me,
substance.
yeah, let me,
What that means
you
to
know,
you.
I would say, look, when you are building something, there are lots of things that you are right, but there are lots of things you're not going to be right. Pricing not right, go to market not right, east versus west. There are a lot of mistakes you will make. And so what I mean by that is, you will know as a founder, your intuition will guide you when you have made a mistake. And you must believe in yourself. I can tell you n number of instances when my intuition and my gut was telling me X and I did not do X, even though fast forward 9 months, I wish I knew I did it, right? What I meant back to the people is like, look, there are some times, I think you asked a very good question about domain versus experience.
And clock speed
Or
versus
clock speed versus
domain
domain
experience,
is if you have the clock speed in an individual, that person will come through. It just may require a little patience on your behalf. And that's a very important lesson to learn also. Not only do you not want to do fail fast forward when your intuition is telling you something, but you need to balance that with patience. And that's, if you think about fail fast forward and patience, they don't go well together.
That's right.
They're actually, they're orthogonal to each other, right? But this is where you have to go within yourself. Of course, you want validation with your mentors, with your investors, with your partners, with your co-founders. Of course, you want to validate your thoughts and ideas. But end of the day, you must believe in yourself. No matter what happens, no matter what comes. You may have hired somebody, back to your people point, you may have hired somebody, that chapter didn't, let's say, work out for any reason. You hired again and it again didn't work out. And you did again and it didn't work out. Do not give up. Do not give up on your own intuition. Because you know it. By not making that, and this is, I don't know if you remember, this is 2021, I think you and I talked in December, is short-term pain versus long-term pain.
Of course.
And that framework of, you may have hired a rock star.
Take the short-term pain, because the long-term pain is worse.
And it doesn't matter how many times you have to take the short-term pain, is my point. Of course, you have to reflect, you have to internalize, you have to, you have to go more deeper, that what could I be doing better, or what can we be doing better?
And you don't want to make the same mistake twice and 3 times.
Correct. And so I think, look, we case in point, our first 70% of our engineers, first 70% of our first 10 employees, 7 out of 10 are still here, still with us. And I think if I look at that chapter, it's because we treated them like as much as a founding team. We treated them as founders. Big decisions, small decisions, we all took together. Extreme transparency with them. If some decisions were not right, we told them these were the reasons why they were not right. Right? So, so I think, well, there's so many other lessons, like, especially in this era of hybrid work. I would not do hybrid work. I would force to be together.
5 days a week in the office.
5 days in the week in the office, and look, people want to take half a day. That's okay. It's no big deal. But being together, I remember my days before starting this company. Like good companies like Data Domain or
what's the reason that you would say, this idea of hybrid work is a fallacy, that being effective is a fallacy? What's the reason an entrepreneur, should know that if they don't sit in the same office around the same water cooler, that they're sub-optimizing?
I think, look, it's. I think it goes back to, again, what you said. Is a startup journey 0 to 1, 1 to 10, 10 to 50, doesn't matter, 10 to 100. It's going to go through its highs and lows. You're going to lose a very good customer. You're going to miss a quarter. You're going to hire somebody who was not the right. You're going to go through lots of challenges. And the only thing that holds back, and this is another big thing I've learned, is culture. And I think those core pillars of people, your own gut instincts, and culture. To me, those are the foundations of a public institution that ends up becoming a public institution, right? And I think culture is just not built on Zoom.
Yeah.
It is built, being in person and engaging in a discussion. And even if you're just sitting two people in a room,
Yeah.
right? And you may be working on your project, I may be working on my own project, but that togetherness brings camaraderie.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That you will be together on the last week of the quarter where you have to go through hell, but you know that you have with each other.
You can't build empathy on Zoom.
No, you cannot. That's another well said. So yeah, I to me, don't fast track on hiring. Take your time. Believe in yourself. People are all this journey is all about having the right people on the right seats at the right time, and culture is something you start day -1, and you codify it and you live it, and you of course iterations are all fine. That's no problem. Iterations are a function of growth, or growth is a function of iteration. Sorry, but do not give up on your cultural values. I think those are very important, no matter who says what.
Well, great discussion, and I'm glad we had a chance to share some wisdom, for other entrepreneurs who are starting out on their journey.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Tarun, for
I think this is
swinging by.
No, appreciate that. No, Jake, it's a pleasure that Of course, I'm very grateful for a common friend who introduced us 6 years ago now, and I think you're a very special partner to the founders, and I think the thing about you that I've admired the most is objective feedback always, and you give guidance in your special way, but it does leave an impact. So please ever give up that.
Thank you. It's been a great journey to be on.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tarun.